have offered my services, my knowledge and my background to the commission, but I've been turned away because I was told, since my address is here in Mount Lebanon, that my opinions are biased. So, I disagree. I want to give you some factual reasons of why I think that this installation of artificial turf here in Mount Lebanon is of environmental concern to all of us. I'm going to give you 3 reasons that I think that this is a bad choice for the environment. I should say that I am opposed to the artificial turf for many more reasons other than just the environmental concerns. But I'm just going to focus on the environmental concerns because that is my area of expertise. So the 3 things that I'm most concerned about as an environmental scientist are the application of toxic metals to the artificial turf, the removal of the soils and grass, which do not naturally contain elevated levels of metals, and the installation of shredded tire, which does contain elevated concentrations of toxic metals. The second thing I'm going to talk about is the carbon sink. We're taking away a material, a natural material that is able to absorb carbon dioxide and work as a carbon sink. We all know that removing carbon dioxide from the environment is a good thing. We're replacing that with a material that does the opposite. And the third reason that I'm upset with this installation of artificial turf is because of the heat islands that it's going to generate. We know that global warming is not good for the environment, and we're adding a material that is going to increase that effect. So let's look at those 3 items in detail. We are taking out a natural soil and natural grass, 2.7 acres of it, which contains naturally about 50 parts per million zinc, a couple parts per million lead, and less than that of cadmium. And we're installing a material, shredded tire, which contains 16,000 parts per million zinc, hundreds of parts per million lead, and many times more than natural cadmium. We're told that zinc is not a toxic concern for humans, and that generally is true, but it is a toxic concern for aquatic wildlife. It needs to be filtered out. It cannot be allowed to run into the stormwaters. Cadmium is one of the most toxic metals on Earth. It is terrible. Tiny, tiny amounts of cadmium ingested can be fatal. It is an extremely toxic metal. We are adding it in this playing surface that we're installing for children by installing shredded tire rubber. So, is this a wise decision, to quote my husband from the commission meeting? Can I get an answer?
No.
Is it wise to take out soils and grasses that naturally do not contain these toxic metals and replace them with a synthetic material that contains elevated concentrations of these metals, and then be required to install a filtration system to then remove that material before it gets into our waterways? It is not a wise decision. So the other aspect to look at is CO2 sequestration. Natural grasses, I wrote down these numbers and I've kind of forgotten them a little bit, but we have a field that's about to be replaced with synthetic turf, and that field is 2.7 acres. The carbon sequestration of compatibility of a grass field that's 2.7 acres in diameter or in size is equivalent to hundreds of trees. So to offset the carbon footprint of removing this grass, this natural soil, we would have to plant hundreds of trees in Mount Lebanon to compensate for the amount of carbon that's now going to be released into the environment. Where are we going to plant them? We can't plant them on synthetic turf, right? Okay, so the third aspect then is the heat islands. We know that natural grasses participate in evapotranspiration. The soils, the rain that falls, accumulates in the soils, and then those grasses slowly release that water into the environment. Forgive me now, I am a nerd. That is an endothermic reaction. That is a net cooling reaction in the environment. The process of releasing that water from the soil and grass to the atmosphere cools the environment around it, and it cools it in measurable quantities by a couple of Celsius degrees. If we take out this grass and we install an artificial turf, we're doing the opposite. We're heating that surface by measurable degrees, tens of degrees in Fahrenheit, in fact, creating unnatural heated surfaces that we're then encouraging our small children to play on. It is not right. So these are just 3 components. These are just 3 environmental concerns. There are so many other things that we could consider, including the amount of disruption to the environment that's going on just by tearing out, strip mining the soil, the trucks that are being moved into the area to install the turf. All of these are disrupting the environment. So the last thing I'm going to say is the crumb rubber isn't just a one-time installation. I don't like to use the term crumb rubber. I shouldn't have said that. How about crumb shredded tire? Rubber is a natural thing. It's not really that bad. Crumb tire is different. It is bad. I think it was Dr. McNitt who said that we would have to add thousands of pounds of crumb tire every year to make sure that that field is usable. If we're adding thousands of pounds, where is that tire going? Where is that shredded material going? It's being released. It's being released on the athletes' clothing as they're coming home. It's being released into the atmosphere. It's floating into the backyards of the residents who live in the vicinity of the field. And it's going into your waterways. If we have to replace thousands of pounds of it every year, those toxic metals, that toxic rubber is going into the environment. So we know that for a fact. So I guess that's kind of all I had to say in terms of these concerns. I would like to say that I am not being paid to be here. I offered my expertise in the past. I offered them to the commission. The commission didn't want to hear my opinions because they said I was biased. Then they hired a turf expert, paid him thousands of dollars to come here, and they directed him on what he was allowed to say. Are we supposed to believe that that is unbiased? I don't think so. Okay. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bank. Our next speaker is Chuck Pekorski, who has been a resident for almost 20 years and a youth sports supporter. He has served as vice president and coach of the Mount Lebanon Girls Softball Association, coached for the Mount Lebanon Basketball Association, and is a member of the St. Bernard Pastoral Council. A committed community volunteer and business executive, he has important perspective regarding the economics of this issue. Chuck? Thank you.
Good morning. First of all, I just want to talk a little bit about what I believe to be the economic issues associated with this turf project. First of all, we have to understand that Mount Lebanon is a community in transition. Our median income, disposable income, net worth, and property values trail our surrounding communities by a wide margin. Municipal spending should prioritize public safety, infrastructure, and economic development initiatives instead of turf. Evidence of decline are at every gateway to Mount Lebanon. You look at the LA Fitness property on Route 88. You look at the Zemaya's property down the street. Look at the maintenance department on Cedar Boulevard and the Bellini property right there. Then you have the up Bower Hill Road, you have the St. Clair shops, and I understand that's part of Scott Township, but still a gateway to Mount Lebanon. Since when did artificial turf and deer management become the 2 major problems in our community? You know, what we want to fix are wants and not needs. Why are we paying now for turf, but then we float bonds to fix our streets and infrastructure? It makes no sense. I have some numbers here, but I'm not going to share them with you unless you ask. But basically, if you look, we trail Upper St. Clair by almost $30,000 in median household income. Our property values are significantly less, and our disposable income is even more so, significantly less. Look, with the aspect of athletics, about 3,800 participants play sports in youth sports in Mount Lebanon. And most of those children participate in more sports. That number is inflated. But if you take the number at face value, Mount Lebanon has a population of about 33,000 and 3,800 athletes, about 11.5% of the population at best. If you look at the field sports, I understand there's more field sports being played than baseball and softball. But no matter how you slice and dice, it's still over 40% of the youth sports participants play softball and baseball. So why are we catering to a smaller segment of the population to turf the fields? Money's been spent and debts incurred on field initiatives. You look at the McNeely Road and Twin Hills, I think there's about $3 million invested in that, and they're sitting useless. No one's developed them, no one tries to develop them. They're just white elephants that cost us money. Excuse me, I got my notes here. I agree that Mount Lebanon needs to have sufficient field inventory that's safe and well maintained. That I do believe in, but I don't believe the turf is the answer. Just from a practical standpoint, the Mount Lebanon Girls Softball Association only averages about 3 to 4 rainouts per season. We play, I mean, there's 800 girls participate from kindergarten through high school, and now we have a college division. And 3 to 4 rainouts a year. And almost every game is scheduled on fields. So we have plenty of field inventory to support softball and baseball. And the other thing is, if you look at field sports like soccer, lacrosse, they're all developed on grass. Why do we need artificial turf? Okay, they're made to be played in the elements. And regardless of how you slice and dice it, if it's a thunderstorm, no one's going to play. Okay, and then the other part of this is, you know, once we build this field, it's in process, how are we going to maintain the other fields in the inventory? All the money are going to go to fixing this field and maintaining it. Even though it's a school district, there won't be any money left because the athletic associations would be holding to try to maintain these fields. Okay? I do believe that adding field inventory is a priority. Okay? We've had several plans put on the table. They've all been voted down for various reasons, because someone wants turf. Okay? We have unutilized properties that we can do these projects on for significantly less money than we're putting into the fields at Bobcat and Mill. Replacing the turf every 6 to 8 years is a financial liability and stay with this community forever. The youth sports associations, they can't fee enough, or they can't pay the user fees, and they can't fee the participants enough to replace this field every 6 to 8 years. It's just an economic impossibility. Okay, and it also caters for a very narrow band of participants. I prefer natural grass, to be honest with you, but I really don't have an opinion on the safety. I can't comment on the safety. Economically, this makes no sense for our community. So basically, we have a majority of this project an undesignated fund balance is fiscally ignorant. People don't care. I mean, it's like we want it now, but it doesn't really make any sense for our community. You know, and because I do coach several teams, we go to surrounding communities, and the kind of running joke is, Mount Lebanon spends it like we have it, and we don't. So I just hopefully that, you know, if we can't stop this field, we can stop the other ones. This is just not the right thing to do financially. Anyone have any questions?
Why can't the parents boycott letting their children play?
Oh, you can boycott. There's several facilities. If you look at South Point is now building a facility for basketball. You have Cool Springs is also doing facilities. So you can play other places. There are other alternatives for people to play. Yes.
Yeah, I just wonder. I have to assume that the other commissioners are really stupid people. So why doesn't any of this register with them? Or
They want it. They think it's a need, not a want. And they put it in front of everything else. I mean, there's some, you can name the projects that have been delayed or postponed or canceled to put money to this turf. I mean, why are we floating bonds to fix streets? And yet we're paying cash up front for the field.
Psychologists call it destructive entitlement.
That's more brainy than I am. Any other questions? Yes. Basically, if you look at it, it's a multi-purpose field. You see a lot of soccer, youth soccer, not so much Mount Lebanon Soccer Association, but lacrosse and field hockey will be probably used it primarily. Baseball and softball will use it. The only issue with that is they're going to where the infield sections are, they're going to paint those brown to make infields. So it's going to be a real fun treat. Yes.
Yeah, when you were talking, I had an idea pop into my head. Maybe we need the environmentalists to find a deer that's been affected by this black cloud.
Maybe we can call the deer and have a deer infill. It's biodegradable. Yes.
I wonder, somebody mentioned boycotting, and I'm wondering, can't we, all of us here, be part of some kind of a project to alert all the parents who may not have read things about this? Oh, she's got that covered.
Yeah.
And can we suggest to those people they withdraw their kids from those sports? He's got it covered, so I'm glad.
I remember that Little Fighting Galleria resident gave us fields.
That was a long time ago. Yeah, there were.
And then they gave it back.
Yeah, there was a field given. This is before my time, but I think there was a field donated and it wasn't taken because I think it was some environmental issues. Kelly, is that true? Kelly, can you address that, please?
That's Krebs Field, across actually where Hamani Brothers and the nursing home is behind it. That was Soccer Association, and soccer they sold it. They sold it and have the money and funds in their association. The issue became the neighborhood. The neighborhood didn't want to have all the traffic coming into the neighborhood on Terrace, Hoodbridge, that area. But at that time, the sports people didn't want to come off of Washington Road. They thought it was too busy of a street. Well, now the Pomani and the nursing home and the gas station and all those places down there saw that the Washington Road was a fine access, and that was probably a very big missing opportunity for a grass field there. There's also another project that was put up in 2012, and I'm not saying this because it's the one that I put up and I lost, but I will tell you, Rob Hollow. Rob Hollow is a 42-acre park. It has part of Public Works on it that should not be there. There's a section of it that everybody sees along Cedar up until it hits Gilkison. There could be a junior-sized field. We were told that multiple times. Right there, have a practice field. All these kids that are running around in the fall that are yay high don't need a big space. They could be off of that field, giving the field time over at Cedar Boulevard. And then, all around the side, if you're coming off of Kelso, is the other half of Rob Hollow. There used to be a field. Used to be a softball, baseball field up there. We leaf grind. All of your leaves go there. We've been grinding for years up there. But we would not have to take out more than a quarter of an acre of additional trees in order to make a full size for football, soccer, baseball, multi-use field up there, and it was denied. I couldn't get even one vote on it.
Yes.
I have a question for anyone. Do you know the exact location of the
Pardon?
What exactly, can you explain what exactly the plan is for the infield?
She's asking, what is the plan for the infield at this point with the turf project?
At this point, the whole field is going to be turfed. And they're going to make a removable pitcher's mound on middle field and a permanent mound on Wildcat for the high school team. But basically, the infield is going to be painted brown. So you'll have a turfed infield that's painted brown.
So that makes a lot of sense for softball and baseball.
It makes no sense for softball.
Entirely different things.
It's basically, if you look at it, in my opinion, this is only my opinion, sooner or later, softball and baseball will no longer use that field. I think it's going to be, once they get it down, it's going to be kind of transitioned over. I mean, if you look at the field schedule for 2015-16, there's very limited access to some of these other associations, but it will be probably transitioned over at some point.
Thank you, Chuck, very much. A couple things before we move on, just to mention this young lady, Frankie Cavalier. Is that how we say your name, Cavalier? I watched her very bravely address the commissioners about this issue. She stood firmly on her 2 feet and told them her view on it. So thank you. And it's nice to see someone who would be exposed to this stepping up to the plate to talk about it. So thank you, Frankie. 2 other quick things. This is ironic. I'm standing under a gazebo that is dripping on me because there are pinholes in the gutter. There are pinholes in the gutter. So we can't fix that, but we can spend $1 million on tire waste. Go figure. I want to thank the Sierra Club for coming out, for your support. That means a lot. I also want to mention Elaine Gillen's blog. If you want the real information about what's going on, It's Lebo Citizens Blogspot. And please check her blog regularly because she does work very hard to get the word out about what is actually going on in our community.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is James Cannon. He grew up here and he's a community volunteer with a keen interest in the workings of our local government. In fact, he's an expert on government relations professionally. James has served on the Community Relations Board and serves now on the Veterans Committee and as an alternate on the Zoning Board. He will share with you his perspective on the process that has been followed, or not followed, and how this project has circumvented the necessary oversight that we deserve.
Thank you, Charlotte. Of course, having a microphone in my hand, I'm going to editorialize a bit too. I want to talk to you for a few minutes about the way things are and the way things should be. I'm not going to stand under this thing because I don't want to get electrocuted because the commission refuses to maintain what we already have. You know, we're supposed to have an open form of government. It's a system that provides for, you know, while some of us might disagree with the ultimate decision, it provides for transparency, so we all know how that decision is being made. That's why we have public meetings. That's why there are state requirements by law to advertise those meetings. That's why we, as the public, are allowed, ostensibly, and I'll get to that in a minute, to attend those meetings and have input. And those components make up what we refer to as a free government, or the general term, a democracy. We don't have that in Mount Lebanon right now. We have a polished, classier, dressed up version of a third world banana republic. Yeah, I'm the red meat guy, that's why they brought me in. So let me walk through something, a couple of minutes. Just bear with me, you're going to see the point here. Most of you are aware of the high school renovation, right? You know, the project that was supposed to deliver that state-of-the-art facility for a 21st century education. Never mind that one of the key components left out of the design was the computer lab. Some of you might remember how that project was pushed through. I know you do, James. It was a need, because neighboring communities had new buildings. Remember that word, need. The estimated cost for that school, right out of the gate, was pretty low initially. It was reasonable. Hey, don't worry, the school board said, we can afford it. Besides, it's for the children. Never mind the projections for declining enrollment. When residents began to question that project and the direction it was headed, or simply asked for details, what did the school board do? They circled the wagons. Never mind, the school board was told that they were mismanaging our tax dollars and we weren't happy about it. Now, suddenly, residents who attended those school board meetings were treated with contempt, open disdain by the school board directors. Not all of them, of course. When 4,000 signatures from residents of Mount Lebanon were handed to that school board, their reaction? Well, we have 4,001, so we're going to move ahead. Thanks for stopping by. Never mind that they never produced a list of supporters. The entire process was fraught with deceit, lies, and ugly behavior on the part of those school board members. Now here we are again. But this time, with the other half of the dynamic spending duo, the Mount Lebanon Commission. Of course, Kelly's exempt from all of this. Got it. I'm not sure if you know this, but being labeled a tree city means that money grows on them. So a couple of years ago, a handful of people, and I literally mean a handful of people, teed up this idea of an artificial turf. You know, it's for the children. There's no reason for it other than surrounding communities already have it. USC, Bethel, Peters. So our commission started heading down that path, and some residents started to attend meetings and ask questions. They were told, hey, don't worry about it, we can afford it, besides it's for the children. Those same residents kept attending, and over time, the message morphed into, well, it wouldn't be so bad, and we might have the money to do it somewhere. And those same residents began asking harder questions. asking for details about hard costs versus soft, maintenance responsibility, long-term costs, and the topper, how the commission would pay for it. The commissioners, much like the school board, circled the wagons. They told us turf was a need. And suddenly, residents who asked questions about the project and the direction it was headed, or just asked for details, were treated with contempt. When meeting after meeting yielded unanimous opposition to the project, we were told by 4 of those 5 commissioners, look, we get just as many letters and emails in support of it. So we're going to move ahead. Never mind that to this day, they have never produced a list of supporters. The commission purposely put as little attention as possible on what they've been doing. There was no outreach, there was no large-scale communication effort to let everybody in Mount Lebanon know how some of their money was going to be spent. When asked about the stunning lack of effort to make residents aware, the response from the commission was they had done what was legally required. And I got to tell you from experience, that's on occasion a bare minimum. Show of hands real quick, how many of you still run across people who don't know what's going on with this turf project? Exactly. The commissioners have ignored, flat out ignored, input from a majority. We recently had a commissioner state in a public meeting that he wasn't aware of any negative information about artificial turf, despite multiple reports being handed to him, including a report by NBC News. We had a commissioner write in an email in November of 2013, before they voted, that she had the necessary votes to move ahead with the project. That, folks, is a violation of the Sunshine Act, and that is against the law. Our contracted municipal engineer took it upon himself to contribute several $1,000s during the private fundraising effort from the SAB, knowing that if the money hit the goal, the project would be pushed through, and who would get that design and engineering work? Yeah, our contracted municipal engineer. That's pay to play, and that, folks, is illegal. The donation, just as an aside, the donation that he made was later changed to anonymous. We had a resident asked to leave a sports advisory board meeting not too long ago, this summer. Folks, that's a municipal board, and those meetings, by law, are open to the public. Throwing somebody out, if they are a resident, is illegal. We had somebody personally threaten Kelly. We had someone issue a veiled threat to Elaine. We've repeatedly asked for a list of those who have contributed to this project, and we've been told that it's private. You know, I could go on and on and on with examples, but the message is this: we've lost our way in this community. We, meaning the electorate, have allowed people like the school board and 4 of the 5 commissioners to get away with everything. You might have heard there was an election recently. All across the country, voters showed up at the polls, and they said to a good number of candidates, we don't agree with the direction this country's headed in, and you know what? We're going to change course, and we're going to change it tonight. And that's exactly what happened. And folks, that's what needs to happen here in Mount Lebanon. I say it's time to stop the reckless behavior. It's time to stop the irresponsible spending. It's time to stop treating residents as adversaries instead of allies. It's time to stop the bizarre and unrealistic competition with other communities. It's time to stop the secret meetings. It's time to stop catering to a tiny collection of special interests. It's time to stop steering this community into the abyss. And folks, it is time for a change here. So let's all get involved. Let's stay involved. Let's get organized, and let's change the course of this town. Thank you.
Thank you, James. One other irony, just to mention, you may see the kids out collecting Canners from Penn State. They're raising money for pediatric cancer for the Hershey Medical Center. Another irony of today, isn't it? We're giving them turf and raising money for their cancer research. Okay, our final speaker today is Steve Diaz. He's a 40-year he has 40 years of political experience at the local, state, and national levels. He's a resident, and he is deeply concerned about our local leadership. So, Steve, you get the last word. Thank you.
I never get the last word. Well, I guess by now some of you think we have a crummy rubber tire problem, right? And we do. But we have a bigger problem. And our bigger problem is that there aren't 500 people here today. Okay? Until or unless there are 500 people when we have a rally like this, which represents the fact that more people know about the problem, more people care about the problem, and more people are going to do something about the problem. It doesn't matter what the science is. It doesn't matter what the policy is. It doesn't matter how high the taxes go, because you can't do anything about it. So the most important thing that you need to do with your concern is to turn it into action. We need to have the people who believe in these causes come together, organize. You want to make an electoral change? You've got to have qualified and competent candidates. And you've got to have money to promote their candidacies, and you have to have volunteers to make it happen. So the bottom line here, folks, is it's really nice to talk to you about things we agree about, but so what? And as we leave here, the one question you should have in your mind is, so what? What can I do about it? What can we do about it? And where are the other people who say when we talk to them, they think these are problems too? Where are they? If they're not here, they're probably not at commission meetings. They're probably not voting for commissioner. They're certainly not running for commissioner. They're not doing the things that we need to do to make a difference. The so what of it all. And that is the bottom line. Okay? This can't be the last word. It has to be the first word. Organize. Okay? And so, with that, I'm going to give you back to Charlotte, because she's the one around whom we should all coalesce, because she can make it happen.
Thank you, Steve. One last thing. Kelly has to leave very soon, but she wants to present what is being done already by Dan Miller regarding this issue for legislative changes. So I'm going to give this to Kelly.
Thank you. Sorry that you have to listen to me again. One of the things that did happen and transpire in the last week is that I sent numerous articles and information to our representative about the state banning artificial turf surfaces until there's a known either issue with it or not issue, but until that information is confirmed. He is starting to do that. He's gone to the Health Committee. He's gone to a couple of other committees that relate to this issue. We need to continue the pressure on our representative, Dan Miller. We need to continue the pressure on Senator Smith to do these things in the state level. But one of the other areas that we need to address is the county. The county can ban any new artificial turf surfaces in the county as soon as they want to. So we need to be reaching out to our county council, which is an unknown thing. A lot of people probably have never done that before. But we will need to get that information to you And not only will you have to address the commission and let them know your thoughts and attend meetings, but you will also have to let the county council know and let them know that this is important. This is not the only field that's expected to go in the next few years in Mount Lebanon. There are 2 others that are under consideration by 2020. So even if this goes in, the fight is not over, and we need to make sure that we address future fields. So please, keep bugging us at the commission. I love it. Please talk to your county council reps, Sue Means, and any of those on the county council that you might know. Go see Dan Miller in his office. It's right here on Washington Road. Senator Smith's on Castle Shannon Boulevard, and let them know. Next will be Congressman Murphy, and telling him that there should be a federal ban on this until we know what materials are in this turf. So please, Frankie can do it. Allison can do it. Jan can do it. We can all do this together. It does not mean that one person's going to do it for us. It's got to be everybody that goes to all of these people and take the time to make a difference. Not only for Mount Lebanon, but for everywhere. The only last thing that I did want to say, I'm sorry, Charlotte. James, you were standing up here and I thought about it. I know. One of my other passions is veterans. James is a veteran. I do want to thank, and any time that we have these demonstrations, rallies, protests, whatever you want to call this, is because of those who have served our country. November 11th is Veterans Day, right next to the fields that we are putting our official turf in. But we ought to be thanking our veterans for allowing us to have today and allowing us to be able to express our opinions whether we agree with them or not. So thank you, James. Thanks for serving our country.
That's all we have. Some of us will be around if you have any further questions. Again, thank you for coming, and let's just hope that we can do good work and help this community function better than it's doing right now. Thank you.